Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to this episode of A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host, speaking at you from Sunday, June 23rd, 2024, in the space and time continuum. Now, this is entitled The Hypocritic Oath. It's something that I'm not even going to say Republicans, but it includes mostly Republicans. Conservatives, you must take the Hippocratic Oath. We're hearing more and more about hypocrisy. We're going to do our satellite view going back in time to see how things happened back then compared to now. We're going back to August 28th, 2007. How long ago is that now? 17 years, I believe. You may remember the name Larry Craig. I am not gay. I love my wife. Excruciating press conference by then Senator Larry Craig from the state of Idaho, which we now know is banning abortions, and women have been airlifted out of the state when they have any type of injury if they're pregnant, because doctors and emergency rooms are afraid to fix a sprained ankle on a pregnant woman, because if something happens with the pregnancy, everybody goes to jail. Everyone. Idaho. Going back to 2007, Larry Craig, a conservative who stood up for anti-gay measures, seemed that was the main reason he became an elected official. We heard a lot of stories like that back then. But this one is because actually here in Minneapolis, on June 11th, 2007, Larry Craig was in a restroom in the airport. He basically signaled to the stall next to him some things that are known to be, hey, you want to, do something together here in the restroom? And it was an undercover officer in the next stall. They were doing a sting operation because there had been complaints about sexual activity in that bathroom at the airport. It has now been demolished, actually. It turned out to be a huge deal. But it has to do with moving your foot toward the person next to you, and he actually then touched the guy's foot. To try and fight against that, he said, I'm kind of a wide guy. All right. Interesting. He pleaded guilty. He paid a fine. It was something like $550. He wanted it to just go away, so he pled guilty. Then fellow conservatives found out, and they said, why did you plead guilty? You need to fight against this. So then he tried to fight against it. He tried to rescind his guilty plea, which wasn't going to happen, but he tried to make it happen. Senate Ethics Committee got involved, but he tried to fight against it, and he tried to claim he's not gay. Now, I don't blame him at all for being gay or seeking sexual activity with other gay men. But he got in the legislature to try and pass legislation again. He was very anti-gay. I remember watching that press conference and I felt horrible for him. I'm like, wow, he hates himself so bad. And it's because of this culture that he's in where they say that being gay is just wrong and it's a horrible sin and it's vile and disgusting and blah, 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 blah. But so many of them turn out to be gay. And then they hate themselves. They're not allowed to be gay. In December of 2007, after all this news came out, 8 gay men came forward to the Idaho Statesman, a newspaper, alleging either sexual encounters with Craig or attempts by Craig to engage in sexual encounters with them. 4 of the men gave the newspaper graphic recorded details of their alleged sex encounters. One of the 4 was Mike Jones, the male escort who in November 2006 had been involved in a sex and methamphetamine scandal with Ted Haggard. If you remember, Ted Haggard is a Methodist pastor, the founder of the New Life Church in Colorado Springs. and the founder of the Association of Life-Giving Churches. He served as president of the National Association of Evangelicals. And of course, he turned out to be a closeted gay man who hates himself because he's told he should. So this guy, Mike Jones, claimed that Craig paid him $200 for a massage and something else. There were a lot of very illicit stories about him cruising somebody in an REI store in Boise in 1994. A guy said that back in his college days in 1967, a man came out and said that he was trying to be in the fraternity that Craig was in at the University of Idaho. Craig led the student to his bedroom, and he made what the man said he took to be an invitation to sex. Another guy having an oral encounter with Larry Craig in Union Station in Washington, D.C. in about 2004. So pretty much his whole life, he's been gay. But he grows up in a world where you're not supposed to be, so he hates himself. What I'm getting at these people for is their hypocrisy, not their homosexuality. I got no problem with their homosexuality. It's the hypocrisy. Another guy, Jim Colby, in the mid-90s, got tied into another scandal. He was on a camping trip or something like that with some young men, very young men, and was accused of bad behavior. He was a married conservative. He was forced to come out. There was, of course, the Defense of Marriage Act in the 90s, which he voted in favor of, and it tried to make it so that the United States would permanently never recognize gay marriage. After he did that, some people called him out, and he ended up coming out of the closet. Of course, he had to step down from his seat because you can't be a Republican and be an open gay person. So he was forced to come out of the closet. He ended up marrying his partner later on in life, a gay man who's afraid to be gay and was living, and what does this do to the people's wives, too? I mean, it's just horrible. The Mark Foley scandal, it broke in September 2006. Suggestive instant messages sent by Mark Foley, a Republican congressman from Florida, to teenaged boys who had formerly served as congressional pages. Do you remember that one? That was part of what made the Republicans lose everything in 2006. So back 15, 25 years ago, the hypocrisy were these closeted gay men who were trying to pass legislation against gays, and it seemed like that was their main reason for doing it. Now we go to now. Let's come back in time. Now the hypocrisy has to do with women's reproductive health care rights. Let's listen to a little bit of this.
Talked openly about various women that you have impregnated and one who had an abortion. And you said on the floor of the House, quote, "I respected her rights and actually gave her money to help her through her important critical time so she could live her best life." In the legislature, you have voted to limit abortion access for other women, but you say that you respected your girlfriend's right to an abortion so that she could live her best life. If abortion was the best choice for your girlfriend, why try to deny that choice to other women?
So let me give you some context about that situation, because I'm a pro-life Catholic, and I believe everyone should choose life. Now, if you listen to my presentation on the House floor, did you listen to it?
I did, in fact. I just quoted from it.
Okay, so what was the major theme, and what did I repeat probably 20 times? Hold on, let me help you.
I thought you were asking me a question.
No, go ahead.
Okay, you hear what's going on here. This is Richard Holtorf, currently a Colorado state representative. And the guy interviewing him is Kyle Clark. He's got a show called Next with Kyle Clark. He's a journalist from Denver, Colorado, on Channel 9 News there. Really, he's held Lauren Boebert's feet to the fire. You may have heard that from the past few weeks. This guy, Kyle Clark, is great. And you can hear then Richard Holdorf doing their thing like, hey, have you even listened to what I said? And of course he goes, yeah, I just referred to it. Okay, what did I say? He's turning it around, trying to grill the host, trying to grill the interviewer. This is the first sign of like, okay, you know what's going on here, Richard. So Richard apparently bragged about impregnating numerous women, from what it sounds like here. He told a story about, I'm going to tell the story quickly because this interview, this portion gets long because Holtorf is just not willing to answer the question. And you can hear Kyle Clark trying to get him. Here, I'll play the next few seconds and you can hear what Kyle Clark is trying to do.
Scattered in that speech. What I'm asking you about is the fact that you said that you respected your girlfriend's right to an abortion and then gave her money to help her through an important time to live her best life.
You did exactly what I did.
But yet you've tried to deny that to other women. And I'm asking, why is an abortion good for your girlfriend, bad for other women? That's my question. Simple question.
Okay. So you deflected, and you did a good job of it, by the way.
Wow. I didn't hear Kyle Clark deflect. I didn't hear him deflect. I heard him ask a simple question. And Holtorf won't go there. Holtorf paid for a girlfriend's abortion and said it was necessary for her to live her best life. She wasn't even having a medical issue. She chose to have an abortion because they were young. They were like in their early 20s. She didn't want to have a child. He impregnated her. She decided to have an abortion. He paid her for it because he thought that was the upstanding thing to do. Kyle Clark is just saying, okay, so you're saying that it was fine for your girlfriend to have an abortion to live her best life, but no other women should be able to do that. And later on, it just gets comical.
Was that her choice? Yes. Did she have that right? Yes. Was it my choice, Kyle? No.
Why do you seek to deny the choice that you said was best for your girlfriend's life?
Let me finish explaining.
Why do you seek to deny it to other women?
Let me. I don't. You
have voted to restrict abortion access as a legislator.
And I have. And I've actually ran a bill, Kyle. Did you know that? Tim Guyton and I ran a bill that abortion after 22 weeks should be illegal.
That's what I'm referring to. That's the entire crux of this question, which you still have not answered. Why was it okay when you were the father?
It wasn't okay.
But that you gave her money and said it was for her best life. I'm just reading your own words.
Now you have to listen very closely.
See, so this is a few minutes later, and you can hear Kyle Clark still asking the same question. This guy's just blathering on about a bunch of, I don't even know what. And then here he admits it's a medical procedure that is sometimes necessary.
The disconnect between saying that an abortion was what was right for your girlfriend and her best life, but you have sought to deny that access to other women. Do you see the disconnect?
And there are times when you need abortion. Abortion is a medical procedure.
Is one of the exceptions when Richard Holtorf's the father?
No, it is not. It's not about me.
But he still voted against legislation for women to have access to it. So this is the hypocrisy. This is the Hypocritic Oath. Not Hippocratic Oath that doctors take. This is the Hypocritic Oath that conservatives take, that Republicans take, that MAGAs take, that Trumpers take. Yes, they will support a national ban on abortion. Yes, they will. And that's what we're voting for this November. When we come back, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the debate that's supposed to happen this Thursday night. And wow, this will be more fun. There's, again, like every week, there's too much to talk about. I was going to do this debate segment before the break, but we have run out of time. And when we come back, we're going to talk about that and another pretty hilarious thing about Trump within him losing his mind. I think he's going to give us a lot of comedy throughout the rest of the summer. All right, take a short break. We'll be right back on A Satellite View. Satellite View. If you like the music that you're hearing on this show, go to toddmikkelson.com, push the music link, and you'll have access to tons of music I've done over the decades. The debate this Thursday. Talked about an awful lot throughout this last week. Now, you've heard me say that Trump's not going to show up for the debate on Thursday. I still am sticking to that prediction. But what's surprising me and making me feel a little bit like I could be wrong. You've also heard me say, I hope I'm wrong. Because I want this debate to happen. Because people will tune in and they will see that Biden is fine and actually has a lot of good things to talk about. And Trump is absolutely crazed. Absolutely crazed. I want people to see that. But I know a lot of people around Trump are like, basically what I just said is what's in their head. And they're like, how are we going to get him to not go on that stage? I still think that's going on behind the scenes. I think at the last moment, they're going to cancel. I think that's going to be really stupid of them. They waited too long. I think he should have canceled by now if he was going to cancel, which makes me think I could be wrong, which I hope I am. But they're coming up with excuse after excuse. Biden needs to do a drug test. Biden needs to agree to do more debates on Fox News and Newsmax and stuff like that. Otherwise, why should Trump show up to be on CNN? That's what Sean Hannity was saying, starting right away, about a month ago when this was announced that this debate was going to be scheduled. Hannity immediately went on, and he was saying things like, there's no way that we're going to agree to this debate. He was even saying it like that, as though he's like, I don't know, Trump's campaign manager, which I guess he sort of is. But he was saying things like that. This is absolutely atrocious. There's no way we're going to agree to these. He needs to take a drug test. We need to have different moderators. Those moderators are fake news. A lot of projection coming from Sean Hannity. But here's what Laura Ingraham, so it comes this far and he still hasn't dropped out. So now they're really panicking. And here's what Laura Ingraham, and by the way, that is how you pronounce it, Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch had her brother on as a guest. And he called himself Ingraham. And Ben Meiselas said, is that how you say it? Ingraham? And he goes, yep, that's how you actually pronounce it. Because people have been pronouncing it Laura Ingraham. And she doesn't correct them. Anyway, so they're going into a panic. And I want you to pay attention to what she's saying here and notice something. I'll point it out afterward, but I bet you'll find it.
And by the same token, though, if at the end of the debate, a lot of time was spent on the 2020 election, January 6th, or Judge Merchan, Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, with Trump at all sounding defensive or angry, I think Democrats at least will consider that a significant win for them. Remember, they know Biden's weak.
So you probably noticed that, oh, wow, that's all the things that Laura Ingraham and Fox talk about all the time. And she's saying it would be wrong if that was talked about too much. And it would be bad for Trump to look defensive, which is, of course, what Trump has been doing, talking about these exact same things. That's all he does. That's all he's been doing. She goes on.
And this is not to say the weaponization of government is not a huge issue. It is a big issue. But it's not what's driving voters to the polls. So I'd just quickly dispense with that. I could see Tapper maybe asking Trump something like, sir, as a convicted felon, there's a possibility that you may be sentenced to prison and face multiple other cases down the road. How does that make you fit for the presidency, sir?
Okay, that sounds like a perfectly good question to ask of a presidential candidate in a debate. And she thinks, oh, that's what they're going to try and do because they cheat. What's cheating about that? And by the way, this whole sir thing. Same with Trump. Sir, they look at me and they go, they have come up with me with tears in their eyes. Sir, sir. It's so weird. But anyway, she goes on.
Know that this type of question is going to be asked and do one thing. Well, don't get Trump to, try to get Trump to lose his cool. That's why that question's being asked. Again, Trump doesn't need to take the bait. Now, on their convicted felon point, I'd simply say, well, Jake, most people see these cases as driven by politics.
And that's wrong. Most people don't. I'm going to stop her now. Most people don't agree that it's all politics. And she's starting to realize this. She is trying to advise Trump. She thinks Trump's going to watch her and take her advice. And she thinks that he's going to be able to not lose his cool. And she's saying that's the only reason that question's being asked. No, that question's being asked because it's a very valid question to ask a candidate of the presidency. You might go to jail. You've got more convictions coming. What about that? You know, there was one poll that came, and you know how I feel about polls, but there was one poll that said 56% of Americans want him to drop out of the race. There's a large percentage of Republicans that want him to drop out of the race, and independent voters want him to drop out of the race. Everyone wants him to drop out of the race. And she's saying, oh, everyone knows this is just a sham political thing. His conviction. I mean, she's starting to, and you could hear how she said, most people aren't going to be affected by those things. But that's what Fox talks about all the time. She said, the weaponization of government is important, but most people, that's not going to sway their vote. She knows that most people aren't watching her and her colleagues say that on farce news. She knows that most people, and a dwindling amount of people, are going to the Trump quote-unquote rallies. He tried to say, fire code wouldn't let us allow people on the top section of this place he was in Philadelphia. And it's funny because Biden has been there and it was full. Trump was there and the whole top section was empty and the bottom section wasn't totally full either. And they're trying to say, well, fire code wouldn't let that many people in. Oh, it's a stadium. Yeah, we made all these seats, but we're not going to allow people to come in there. So they're just desperate. They're being watched more and more, and they know that they're losing their ground. People. What Laura Ingraham is saying here is that people aren't listening to us anymore. This stuff doesn't work. So they shouldn't talk about it at the debate. And here's another thing. So this is some Tevi Troy. I don't know what kind of a name that is. Tevi, T-E-V-I, Troy. He worked for George W. Bush. He worked in the Bush administration. And here's what he's saying. I'd be wary of assuming that Biden's going to have a bad performance or of talking down his potential performance because he has surprised expectations at the 2020 debate, at the State of the Union address, and at the press conference where they were talking about his mental acuity. And he also calls himself a presidential historian, right? Okay. On Fox News Digital. He goes on. That doesn't mean he's always all there, and I fully recognize that he is not the person he was in 2012 when he debated very effectively against Paul Ryan. But when you lower the expectations of your opponent's performance, it's easy for the opponent to exceed those expectations strategically. Or just naturally, I guess. It's something to worry about. Now, this is the most rudimentary advice that I remember watching West Wing 20 years ago when they were saying things like this on a TV show about politics. You don't want to lower the expectation of your opponent in a debate. It was exactly this. I mean, that was on a popular TV show 20 years ago. Why are they still, this is what I've been saying. The brain power is gone on that side. It's gone. The Republicans have lost all of their brain power. It's just simply gone, and they're back to step one of running campaigns. You heard the Colorado representative, Richard Holtorf. Was he doing a good job of being interviewed on a TV show as a candidate for Congress? Was he doing a good job? Here are some of the other, see if I got to do a little bit of, I do everything myself here, so it's kind of difficult because I'm going through the computer and I'm editing in my head. I'm already seeing that a major thing I was going to talk about, I'm going to have to push off. But also, I'll just stick it in real quick here. Project 25 is being talked about immensely over the last couple of days. And a lot of it was based around an interview on MSNBC yesterday morning. They interviewed Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation, and And if you can find that, you should find it. I'm going to talk about it now, next week. I was going to talk about it this week, but going through my Twitter feed, here are some things that Trump has been talking about. He expects Biden will inject drugs in his ass and get jacked up before the debate. He again promotes his idea of the Migrant Fight League. He wants to have a Migrant Fight League where migrants fight each other, and they have the champion then goes up against a UFC fighter champion, assuming that everybody knows what UFC is. He lists Kim Jong-un liking America when he was in office as an achievement. Trump says he's not cognitively impaired. He asks where the cocaine went in the White House. He tells a story about hating windmills. He says he likes the Rasmussen poll unless he loses in that poll. Rasmussen is they got me ahead now, but if they do a poll where I'm behind, I'm going to hate them just as much as I hate Fox, because Fox just put out a poll this week where Biden is now ahead of Trump, has gained 9 points in the last few weeks or whatever. Bad news for Trump. So now he's like, Fox News polling has always been bad. They should fire Paul Ryan. So there's a long list of what Trump's talking about. We're going to end the show with one of the most funny ones. But I'm going to take 2 minutes here and play you something because I want to get this out to you because we need hope, right? This is going ahead in time. I'll probably replay this later on because on July 11th, which is 3 weeks away now, I believe. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but I told you I was going to talk more about the whole sentencing issue because it's really, really interesting when you actually get information from like prosecutors and lawyers who really know how all this stuff works and they know all the rules about it. I'm going to play you right now former federal prosecutor Will Rollins, and he is talking about the sentencing of Donald Trump.
I mean, I think you got to look at his behavior during the trial and his willingness to accept responsibility because, you know, he had an interview with a probation officer recently, and in federal sentencings, right, the judge has to consider a variety of factors. It's similar in New York State court. And one of those considerations is whether the person is remorseful, whether the person actually has respect for the law, whether the person actually won't recidivate, commit additional crimes. And the judge can also consider whether they're currently charged with additional crimes. And if you look at all of those factors in this particular case, you've got still outstanding criminal cases pending against him involving incredibly serious criminal conduct, the theft of classified national security information pending in Florida right now, obviously the attempt to overthrow the entire United States government. And then you've got the seriousness of the offense in New York, which, you know, the right is trying to act like it's not a big deal. And maybe in other business fraud contexts, that kind of a crime would really qualify as the Class E felony, the quote, lowest degree of felony that there is. But you have to look at the unique facts and circumstances in that particular case. And in his case, that fraud related to an attempt to suppress information from the American people days before a presidential election. And it's also just not fair for the American people and other candidates running for federal office or state office to have a competitor cheat that system. We have campaign finance disclosure rules for a reason, because we believe voters are entitled to know certain information about candidates and how money, more importantly, how money is being spent in the system so that it is not corrupted by foreign adversaries or special interest groups above what those limits are. And that, to me, is really what the crux of this case is. And I think because there has been no remorsefulness, because there have been attacks on the judge, his family, the rule of law, witnesses in the case, violation of court orders, contempt, all of that really in a normal criminal case. And I just say, take Donald Trump out of it. Think about it as if it were a governor, right? A governor who is facing these charges in either political party. That person's going to be getting a prison sentence.
Again, I'm going to repeat that. That is a former federal prosecutor. His name is Will Rollins. I thought he did a very concise but remembered to include all of the things that Trump is up against when he's going to be sentenced on the 11th of July. I know everybody's saying, oh, nothing's going to happen to him. But the information I'm getting from people like him and other prosecutors and even defense lawyers, but people who know these rules, are saying they don't see how the judge can let Trump go without any incarceration. They think there needs to be some incarceration. He might not go to Rikers Island, but they do have a room ready for him there. He might not go before the election. There a lot of caveats, but people feel like, oh, nothing happened. I got convicted and nothing happened, So something is going to happen. He is in serious trouble. Legal trouble. He is in serious legal trouble. I know we haven't heard about all of the money that he owes either. That's on appeal. The appeals then delay things. The system doesn't work as fast as we would like it to, certainly. But it will work. It is working. He was convicted on 34 counts, unanimously by 12 American citizens. It's a big deal. It seriously is a big deal. I wanted to play that before we leave, even though it's a little off of all of our subjects we were going on here. A title that I had a couple weeks ago is The Left or Reich? That is the question. There's a new documentary on Netflix that I am most of the way through, and it's pretty chilling. It's called Hitler and the Nazis, Evil on Trial. The best way of telling that story that I think anyone has ever seen. And a lot of stuff I didn't know. I thought I knew a lot about that. Man. And it goes beyond... It's hard to think about. But part of the reason I think it was released right now is because of the people working on it. I think they made a decision sometime after Trump rose to power. And I think they were like, you know what? We need to tell the story of the Nazis because people need to remember what happens when this happens. Trump and the Nazis. Yes. Hitler and the Trumpers. We've heard that Trump read Mein Kampf. I didn't know that he knew how to read, but or that he reads books. Apparently, he did read one book, and it was that one. I don't know if that's true, but he talked about it. Okay, so I'm going to leave you now with something that I think is hilarious. We're going to go back in time again to 1982. One of my favorite comedy movies. It's called Night Shift. Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton star in it. Michael Keaton is hilarious. This is when Michael Keaton was brand new and Henry Winkler was still the Fonz. The owner of the business's nephew or something has the day shift, and Henry Winkler's pissed off because, he's got the worst shift. He's got the night shift. Henry Winkler's got the night shift, and this really stupid kid has the day shift and doesn't do any work. He just watches TV. He carries a little TV, and so then when Henry Winkler comes to work, the Flintstones is ending on the TV. And the guy picks up the TV and unplugs it and goes, oh, hey, yes, nice to see you. I'm going to go. And he walks out and he's going, and then he goes, that Barney Rubble, what an actor. It's just a line that I've always remembered because it's so absurd, right? Barney Rubble is not an actor. And then, sure enough, we can count on him. Listen to this.
I said, that's Silence of the Lamb. You know what that is?
First of all, it's Silence of the Lambs. But he doesn't know that.
Hannibal Lecter. How great an actor was he?
Okay, I got to roll back again.
Hannibal Lecter. How great an actor was he? You know why I like him? Because he said on television, on one of the... I love Donald Trump, so I love him. I love him. I love him. He said that a long time ago, and once he said that, he was in my camp. I was in his camp. Yeah, I don't care if he was the worst actor. I'd say he was great to me.
That Hannibal Lecter. What an actor. Okay, if you don't know, of course, Silence of the Lambs, it's a character in the story. played by a different guy who is an actor. But Trump, I don't know, when he watches movies, does he wonder how people can fit in his TV? Does he wonder if they can see him back when they're looking at the camera? Do they see me? They're looking right at me. How do they fit in my TV? Hannibal Lecter, what an actor. Anyway, so I'll leave you with that one. You know what we're doing here. We're trying to keep each other sane through the chaos of this election year. If we stick together and pay attention to the actual things going on, not what the media is making it look like is happening. You know, the world is so scary. Trump's going to be president and he's going to kill everybody. Now, he might do that if he becomes president, but he's not going to become president. You and I know that. And if you don't know it, keep listening to this show, and I will bring you the information that will make you feel better about the whole thing. And we're going to make it through Election Day. After that, I don't even know if I need to do this show, right? But no, we'll have more fun then than we're having now. But we're going to keep having fun throughout this summer. And I hope to talk to you next week. Thank you so much for listening this week.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.